Hello, TipToeChick. This is Scott McLaughlin, otherwise known as Political Sanity, here in sunny Southern California. This is in response to your question as to who do I want to be president and why. Short answer to that is Ron Paul is the guy who I'm leaning towards right now. An independent that's geared more towards individual candidates rather than going for the party. So right now, Ron Paul is the guy who I'm leaning towards. Let's see, the reason why I'm going for him, well, he's got a great record of being the taxpayer's advocate. He voted against the Patriot Act. In fact, I think he's probably the only member of Congress that consistently reads the bills that he's voting for before he votes on them. He uses the Constitution as a measuring stick to see whether the bill is constitutional or not before he votes on it. And so that's always a good thing, to actually know what you're voting on. To me, he's the only Republican who's making any sense whatsoever in the war in Iraq, the war on terror, the war on drugs, or for our foreign policy issues. He's the only one that's actually speaking towards issues. These things alone are enough to make me like him, and so he's the guy that I'm going for. As for what I think of the other Republican candidates, well, let's see. Fred Thompson hasn't declared himself to be a candidate yet, but he's polling fairly well, and so he is actually a credible candidate. I see him pretty much as an empty suit. He's an actor waiting to fill a role that someone else has written for him. He's a good actor. He's a lousy politician. He was lazy. He was lackluster. He's a lobbyist. He's part of the reason why we're in the position that we're in terms of the amount of corruption that's rampant throughout Washington. And so the last thing that we need is another lobbyist. With John McCain, I think pretty much his campaign is dead on arrival. Between his immigration issues, his stance on the Iraq War, his history of being a maverick, well, that was wiped out when he started kissing George Bush's ass. And so he lost all credibility with the American public. His campaign has tanked, and I think is pretty much DOA. Mitt Romney is a political chameleon. Nobody really knows what his stances on the issues are. His platform keeps changing to suit the audience that he's addressing. He flip-flops far too much. I also think that the Bible Belt is going to have a hard time reconciling the fact that he's a Mormon, and so he's probably not going to get the vote. I would hope that religion wouldn't be a major factor in there, but I think it is going to end up being a factor. Tom Tancredo I see as a single-issue candidate for immigration reform. He doesn't really bring a whole lot else to the table, and so I would hope that it would be a little bit more well-rounded candidate would get my vote. Duncan Hunter. I'm from Southern California and am intimately familiar with his voting record. I'm not going to vote for him. I don't know anybody in the city that actually thinks that he's a credible candidate. And I think it's only a question of time before he's sharing a jail cell with his good buddy Duke Cunningham. Let's see. Huckabee and Brownback are likable candidates, but in my opinion, they pander a bit much to the religious right. They might be good with Middle America, but I don't think that they're going to be good on the coast. If you're on the coast and you have a candidate that doesn't believe in evolution, well, they've pretty much thrown all credibility out the window. Gilmore, I thought, was a pretty good candidate. He was a guy who I was considering giving money to, but he dropped out a bit too early. Yeah, so it's a shame. I thought he was a pretty good candidate. Rudy Giuliani in my opinion, is a scumbag. If he ends up with the nomination, I'm switching parties. It's a complete wonder to me that he is actually being treated as a credible presidential candidate. But then again, after Bush, I guess anything is possible. He's running on a record of being an expert on terrorism and 9/11, but he never bothered to read the 9/11 Commission report and hadn't ever heard of the CIA's theory of blowback, which to me means he's either a liar or he's a complete moron. Either way, I don't want him as my president. Now, going for the Democrats, well, I like Mike Gravel, but I don't think he's going to be the Democratic nomination. I think he's far too intellectual for the rest of Washington. He did a YouTube video that basically consisted of throwing a rock into a pond. Then he walked away. Purpose of that is to show that every action is going to have widespread ripples. And those ripples are going to interact with each other. Nobody in Washington got it. So I think he's probably a little bit deep for the rest of the morons that are the rest of Congress. Let's see. John Edwards I had liked until he tried to cull the herd. That I thought was a little bit premature. There's plenty of time before the primaries. I also thought that the way that he treated Dennis Kucinich was uncool. There was a lot better ways of handling something like that, and what he did basically wrote off whatever possibility that he might have had for my vote. Dennis actually has got some pretty good ideas. He's also got a really hot wife, but I really don't think he's going to get the Democratic nomination. Barack Obama, I think, might be a good candidate in a few years once he gets a little bit more seasoning under his belt. Another election cycle, I think he'd probably be ready for vice presidential candidate. I think he's just not ready for prime time right now. Needs a little bit more seasoning. Biden and Dodd are typical Washington politicians. Not viable presidential material. They haven't really come out and said anything noteworthy. I don't think they're seriously running. They're building up some campaign war chests full of donation dollars that they can use after the election. Let's see, for Hillary, as much as I hate to see it, I think she is going to be the Democratic person. She's a consummate politician. She's got the deep pocket corporate votes, definitely. She's got some individual votes. She's not committing to any platform that's going to alienate anybody that's going to vote for her. I just wish that she would hell, I don't even know how to say it. To me, she's just too much of a politician. Something about her makes my hackles rise. I don't trust her. I think she's out to sell out America. Nothing really more that I can say about that. I don't like her. I know that she's going to get some people that vote for her. I hope that whoever goes against her in the primary wins, but I think that she's got enough money so that she's going to have enough money to go ahead and throw mud at everybody else. And I can see that she's going to do it. Let's see. As far as, I think that's all the guys that I can think of right off the top of my head. As far as the third-party candidates, I don't know who's running in the third parties yet. Hopefully someone might throw their hat in the ring that's going to be fairly noticeable. Otherwise, my vote's going to be going towards Ron Paul. And I hope that answers your questions. If you have any feedback or if you want to discuss anything else, feel free to look me up. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.